So, man, super interesting week 3 of college football.
It was a weird week. We'll get into a bunch of stuff. I mean, there were so many top teams that just didn't look good. There was upsets, some really good games too. Some games that lived up to the hype. There were some games that were good that we didn't expect them to be good. That was a fun week.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
that week is like. What college football is all about. And it's just been such a weird season. It's not on a level of like a 2007 where we see all these upsets and everything, but this is like probably the first year in a while where there's no true top team.
Yes.
There's no dominant team.
Yes.
Which I think is great. I think that's going to bring in more people because you don't want to see a team just run through everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there was a lot of games tonight that on paper wasn't supposed to be close. Florida State, Boston College, Colorado State. Let's go ahead and get into that game.
Oh, my God.
So 23.5-point favorites or 21.5-point favorites for Colorado. Their first game that they were going in and they were supposed to win.
Yeah.
You know, the hype's been built up. Everybody, second week in a row that Fox's version of College Game Day was down there. College Game Day for ESPN was down there. And, you know, obviously it was personal heading into this game. But with that being said, it was a great game. It was a great game. I mean, Colorado State did a great job in the first half of keeping Colorado's offense off the field. I think they only had like 8 minutes of possession in that first half. And Shedeur Sanders was 13 for 16, but he only had 65 yards. Yeah. They were doing a great job of making him hit the checkdowns underneath and not letting him, you know, scramble in the pocket, have forever, and be able to take a shot 30, 40, 50 yards down the field. So that was super impressive to me as far as what Colorado State was able to do. And also, number 5, Horker, whatever his name is, tight end for Colorado State, he had himself a game.
Yeah.
Number 14, Horton, he had himself a game.
Yeah.
Colorado State has some guys on that team, man. Also, that number 8 on their defensive end, edge rusher. I think he's like 7 all-time for tackles for that program, and he had a great game. So, Colorado State is a talented team, and it goes back to what you were saying. Even these, you know, mid-tier to low-tier D1 football teams have talent. They have guys that can go and make plays. And, you know, especially when you're talking about the scheme that you see teams running these days, a lot of spread, you know, some 11 personnel, a lot of 10 personnel, RPOs, quick games to the outside. These kids in college now grew up playing in these systems. So they developed as these systems started to, you know, get into Little League, get into middle school, get into high school, and they started to run more and more advanced things as this offense was starting to come more proliferant. So you're seeing now a lot of these guys have playmakers that can make plays on offense. And defensively, it's turning into a game of bend, don't break. You know, you got to force turnovers and get stops in the red zone and get field goals instead of touchdowns.
Yeah. And one thing about Colorado State, I want to give them a lot of credit too. I actually got kind of sick last night, so I wasn't able to watch the full game, but I went back and watched some highlights. But the last thing I saw of that game is Colorado State. They had went down, and I believe they had kicked a field goal, and then there was a penalty on Colorado, and I think that gave Colorado State a new set of downs. And first play comes back out on the new set of downs, guy almost throws a pick. Yeah. They reviewed it, wasn't a pick. And then the very next play, throws a pick 6. And right then and there, you know, it's a night game in Colorado. Crowd's going crazy. And Colorado State's not really one of those teams where you expect to bounce back against a team like that. But they did. Went right back down the field and scored, had a lot of successful offensive drives. And so we got to give Colorado State a lot of credit. I obviously had no expectations of this being a close game. But let's give them a lot of credit. There's a lot of playmakers that stepped up in that game, which is going to be great. You know, it was a primetime game. A lot of those guys, that just helped their draft stock tremendously.
Sure.
But that, like you said, that just proves how much talent is out there. Even at these schools like Colorado State or teams you don't hear from, there are guys that can go play on Sundays. Yeah, sure. And seeing games like this where you see lesser, you know, talented teams have guys step up like that, I think it's just great for the game of football.
100%. Speaking of NFL, future NFL talent, Travis Hunter goes down to a cheap shot by that safety, number 11.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was so abysmal and so egregious of a play. That player should have been kicked out the game.
Oh, yeah.
Off rip.
100%.
I mean, that was almost like he was borderline targeting Travis Hunter.
I'm surprised there wasn't a fight or a brawl that started after that.
That's what I was saying.
That was a clear that had to have been planned before then.
That's what I'm saying. It looked like a target. It was so late and so egregious. It looked like borderline. We got to get him out the game. And I'm not accusing the Colorado State coaches of saying that or doing anything of that nature, but between the players, that defense, you know, and it looked so bad. That's what one would be led to assume.
Yeah.
Now, thankfully for number 11, at the end of the game, whenever Colorado was putting on that 98-yard drive in the 2 minutes, which I think was one of Shedeur's Heisman moments when we look back on this season. Shedeur has had a couple of Heisman moments. You know, that big play against Nebraska on the 2-point conversion last week, and then this past game, that 98-yard drive, that's unbelievable. But Number 11, that safety who cheap shotted Travis Hunter gets broke for, the game-tying touchdown. You love to see that. I was hoping and praying that they would run straight to that dude and just absolutely bulldoze him with the lineman or something. Now, of course, he's playing free safety 15, 20 yards back, so he could kind of, skate free. But I thought that them losing Travis Hunter was going to be a big, massive blow, obviously, because it's like you're losing two players. But defensively, like you mentioned, Shiloh Sanders, Deion's other son from safety,
had
with the
a
pick six
game.
and a forced fumble. And he had, I think he led the team in
a lot of
tackles.
Yep, he had a lot of tackles, made a lot of plays. Just a great game by him.
Yeah, 100%.
Deion's proud.
Yeah, 100%. But as far as red flags for Colorado, I think that they're still showing, and I think, obviously that's the front seven and offensive line on offense. But also I think what we saw a little bit was the depth issue defensively. When Travis Hunter went out, that corner, number 10, it was barbecue chicken alert for number 14. They were isolating him in 14, and that's why you saw, their best receiver went for like 16 receptions and 136 yards. So going forward, Colorado's going to have to stay healthy.
They got to fix that. They got a tough stretch.
Yeah, they're going to have to continue to, build upon that momentum that they have in the front seven, because they play aggressive, they play hard, but they're just a little too undersized. But you mentioned it. They got Oregon this week. Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks. They are one of the most predominant teams in the Pac-12. The run game is dominant. The pass game is dominant off of that. Dan Lanning's a defensive guy, so that defense is going to continue to get better. So going into this next week against Oregon, what are some big keys you're taking away from this game?
Well, I mean, you talked about some of the red flags that Colorado has, primarily in the front seven. Like you said, Oregon's run game is absolutely tremendous. They have an NFL line across the board, great running backs. Bo Nix can run really well. He's a threat into the run game. Oregon's a very tough team to stop if you don't have the right personnel and the size and the depth on defense to slow them down. And if Oregon's in a situation where they're able to run the ball, that's just going to open up the pass game. Colorado, Travis Hunter's great and all, but the secondary, they're just not going to be able to handle what that Oregon offense has for them. And they're going to have to find ways to put up points. Colorado, I'm speaking of, Shedeur Sanders, he's going to have another Heisman game. And that's for Colorado to even have a chance in this one as well. And then in USC coming up the week after, it's kind of a topic for another day, but very similar situation. USC has a really great offense, a lot of explosive playmakers. Colorado is going to have to put up these monumental offensive performances to even have chances in these games.
Yeah, which they have been doing.
And they have been doing, absolutely. But these are going to be by far their two biggest tests of the season. Yeah. And unfortunately for Colorado, it doesn't get a whole lot easier after that. I mean, they still got UCLA. They still got a Washington State team that's playing really well. So I'm really happy for Deion in Colorado, because I'm a fan of Deion. I used to not really follow him a whole lot, especially when he was at Jackson State. You would hear about him. Yeah. But just seeing what he's done with this program, getting this a less talented team to perform at the highest level that they can perform at, that's a sign of a good coach. That's a sign of a lot of, they're on a right trajectory, which is exactly what we talked about in previous videos. We weren't necessarily expecting Colorado to win these games, but they have. But we wanted to see them just compete, and they have competed. And in the last game against Colorado State, people are going to talk about, oh, well, it's Colorado State. Well, sometimes, the better team doesn't always come out on top and dominate. But we saw they got hit with some adversity. They didn't crumble. They were down 28-17 in the fourth quarter. They came back, 98-yard drive. Like, those are things of a good team. And Colorado is really heading in the right direction, regardless of what the rest of the season goes. They're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. They're definitely a resilient group under Deion, and that offensively, it almost seems like they have an unlimited amount of weapons every single week. And new players showing out there. Tight end being the guy against Colorado State that had, I think, 7 targets for 7 catches, 2 or 3 touchdowns, a couple of big 2-point conversions, some big plays in overtime. So Colorado State offensively is great, but like you were saying, USC, Oregon, a tough 2 stretches of games back to back. Both teams are improved defensively. Oregon is a lot more known for their defense. USC, the opposite. Yeah. It was abysmal last year, but this year so far they've been playing good. They got a solid pass rush, and they can get after the quarterback. So it's going to be up on that Colorado O-line to protect them. But yeah. Moving on to by far the most disappointing and heartbreaking moment of college football for me so far, almost seasoning ruining, is the Florida-Tennessee game. Florida goes into the swamp and handles Tennessee. Tennessee could not get anything going offensively after their first drive, and after that Florida just put it on them. I mean,
Yeah, and this, it was disappointing for me to see as well because I picked Tennessee. I thought Tennessee was going to come out and roll in that game.
Yeah.
I had a lot of high expectations for Tennessee heading into a game like this after the season they had last year. Obviously, they beat Florida last year, went over Alabama. They had a lot of big-time wins. And after the first drive, and Tennessee went right down the field, scored probably one of their best offensive drives of the season. I mean, it looked like Tennessee football. You go up 7-0, you quiet the home crowd, all the keys we were talking about in the preview prediction, get the crowd out of it early. Everything just looked like it was falling right for Tennessee. And then the defense, the missed tackles.
Absolutely horrible. Number 5 on defense, I think his last name is Haddon or something. Malik something. I'm not even going to take the time to remember his name because you can't be playing like that. Pitiful. I was borderline hoping when he squared off with that O-lineman for Florida at the end of the game that Florida O-lineman was going to do every Tennessee fan a favor and knock that motherfucker out. Yeah, the missed tackles was a problem last year, and you're thinking, new defensive coordinator, another year to develop these guys, another year in the system. They're going to take a step forward. And against Virginia, they played out of their minds. The front seven, Amari Thompson, playing out of their minds. And then you fast forward to someone who's worth half their weight in dirt against Florida, and Tennessee's defense looks like they don't belong there.
Yeah, and talking about number 5, I'm sure you saw the play. It was a long touchdown by ETN. Number 5, he had perfect position to just make the tackle from behind, stop the play. It was still going to be a big game, but it wasn't a touchdown.
He chest bumps him.
Yeah, I'll put the clip. I'll roll the clip. But it was honestly like he was purposely throwing the game. I've never seen anything like that. At the SEC level, the fact that he even was able to stay on the field and they didn't pull him after that is very surprising.
It is surprising. And then he went to go on and give up another big play a couple plays later. And you would think that there's better guys on the bench. We've been recruiting these 4- and 5-star guys to play man coverage because, it's no secret that's what we run. Double what the second most team in the country that runs it runs. So we are a man coverage team. But if you can't get a pass rush, first off, you can't expect these guys to cover for 4, 5, 6 seconds. And on the back end, the guys who are covering, they can't even cover for 1 second. So it's a problem. And then also the run game, we can't. Okay, I'm going to speak on this because this was absolutely killing me. The zone run game, the outside zone that Billy Napier loves to run, that was getting off. We got to be able to close these gaps. Our linebackers have to be able to move horizontally and fill these gaps. Second off, our defensive ends are coming off the field like coming off vertically like it's a pass play every single time, and they're just rushing the quarterback. So Florida started seeing this and destroyed us with counter. Absolutely ran it up and down the field because if you have a defensive end that's going 4 yards up the field at the snap of the ball, it's such an easy kick out for that pulling guard. And you're seeing it. These guys are getting kicked out. And there's a hole that you could fit a Mack truck through. And there's no adjustments. You have to squeeze as a defensive end or the end man on the line of scrimmage. You have to squeeze and close that puller and close that guard or that hole. And you were seeing it over and over and over again. So, it's obviously it starts from the head down, coaching all the way down to the players. You have to be able to coach that. And if those guys aren't accepting the coaching, get them out of there.
Exactly.
Get them out of there. And then transitioning to the offense, there's 5 O-linemen on a line, right? You got the center, the 2 guards, the 2 tackles. Florida was putting 3 linemen, defensive linemen, and 1 linebacker in the box. So it's 5 versus 4 in favor of us. And we still can't run the football.
And that's what made Tennessee's run game so great for a very, very long time for the past few seasons is having that numbers advantage in the box, and they were able to take advantage of that, and they just didn't.
Yeah, no. And I've said it all the time. I've been preaching it since Heupel came to Tennessee. We are a spread-to-run team. We spread defenses out to run the football. With that being said, the shot plays come off of the success from the run because they got to bring their safeties down, bring an extra safety in the box. And that's where the screen game and the deep shots work. But in this last game, we couldn't get the run game going against favorable numbers, and we couldn't get the screen game going. And if the defense doesn't trust that your quarterback can make the deep shots down the field, they're going to be able to bring those safeties to 10 yards instead of having them back at 15, 16, 17 yards, and they're going to be able to stop those screens. They're going to be able to stop those runs, and that's what we were seeing. We were running screens 2-3 times in a row going into 2nd and 10, and then 3rd and 9 we're running these screens, and it is getting ate up because we do not trust Joe Milton to throw the football. He's piss poor. He's piss poor.
And one thing before you go on, I do want to talk about something about Joe Milton. And this isn't even performance related. This is more of attitude. And
oh my God,
when,
I know what you're about. Thank you for bringing this up, by the way.
And as a leader of your team, and you get in adverse situations where you're facing a lot of adversity, you want your leader to stay calm, cool, and collected. But at a certain extent, your leader's got to have a sense of urgency. He's got to have a look that this is a big deal. And he just looked way too relaxed and way too complacent with what was going on against a conference rival, a must-win game, really, for Tennessee.
When things weren't going his way in the third, fourth quarter, he's smiling, grinning, laughing, like it's the best 2 out of 3, like he can get this back. You're 30 years old, dude. This is your last season. I hate to break it to you. You're not playing in the swamp again.
Yep. He might not even make it through the season. And then we'll get into a little bit more in that in a second, talking about the whole Nico thing. But that was something that was very concerning for me, not only from his standpoint, but coaching. Like, there's just got to be a sense of urgency to win. You got to be able to lock in. Things aren't going to go your way. And this goes for any team, at any level, in any sport. Things aren't going to go your way. You can't let it defeat you and just put you in a negative mood, but you can't let it just roll off your chest like nothing happened. You got to put your foot in the ground and realize what the stakes are, and you got to go out there and get the job done. And there was just no sense of urgency from Joe Milton and really for the rest of the team.
At all.
And that's something that starts from the top.
Yep.
Like I said, if you see your leader, a lot of people are going to follow that, and you have a great analogy that you learned. There's a top 5% and a bottom 5%. And the leaders that have the percentage, the top or the bottom that has the most, like, say over the team.
Influence over the team.
Yeah.
You have about 10% of players that are leaders.
Yeah.
5% are the good voices. 5% are the why are we doing this, coaches tripping, this, that, and the third. The other 90% of the players on the team, like you're saying, they're followers. They're going to sway to whatever side, whatever extreme has the biggest voice, you know, and has the best leaders. I'm not saying Joe Milton's a bad leader, but it's 100% what you're saying. He is not, the sense of urgency is not there, and that reflects on the whole offense as a whole. I mean, we saw that offensive line in the first quarter looked like they had been playing for 4. They looked flat. And penalties as a whole, you could blame it on the refs. Like, you can't blame it on the refs. Some of the calls were on the refs and they were bad calls, but you got to be disciplined as a football team. You can't be giving the defense 5 yards, 10 yards, and being 2nd and 15, second and 20. You can't be giving the defense for any good team, you know, chances to put you behind the sticks because they're going to take advantage of that.
And then one of the things about Joe Milton as well is, and one of the commentators that brought this up, I can't remember if it was Herbstreit or whoever, but Tennessee was really spoiled with Hendon Hooker's accuracy, and you see, and it's really starting to come into play now. It's not even just the deep balls for Joe Milton. It's a lot of the intermediate, the short stuff too, that is starting to come into play. There was one play that just stuck in my head. There was a slant that Tennessee had ran, receiver had beat the DB, and Joe Milton skipped the ball to him like he was skipping a rock on a damn pond. And that's really concerning because one of the best things about Tennessee's offense too, under Hendon Hooker, was his accuracy, his ability to hit those short underneath routes, because obviously you're not always going to be able to go deep, but you got to take what's given to you. And if you can't take what's given to you, you're just not going to be able to move the ball, especially in the SEC, regardless of your opponent.
Yeah, 100%. And you can ask any NFL scout, any NFL coach what they look for in a quarterback. The number one thing is accuracy. I mean, Brock Purdy, Drew Brees, Russell Wilson. I mean, that's just 3 guys off the top of my head that did not have deep ball, you know, arm strength, but they were accurate throwers of the football. And any quarterback playing in college worth half their weight in dirt can hit a deep ball when the guy is, you know, stacked as DB. It's the good quarterbacks that can make the intermediate tight window throws, like you're saying, you know, 10, 15, 20 yards down the field, in the middle of the field, and on the corners. And we're not seeing that from Joe, which transfers me into this next thought. I know you brought it up. Nico, you know, the 5-star quarterback for Tennessee, the biggest recruit Tennessee's had in over a decade. And whenever he got in against Virginia, the fans were chanting his name. You know, Nico, Nico. You don't see that from backup quarterbacks coming in, even if they're 5 stars, you know. So that shows you how hyped Tennessee fans already are for this guy. And I've been saying it for weeks. As Joe Milton keeps continuing to not reach expectations, that Nico train's going to keep going. And you can bet your ass probably about 10,000 Tennessee fans hopped on the Nico train after last night.
Yeah, and that doesn't help Joe Milton's situation at all. You don't want to be in a situation where you're playing scared. You don't want to play in a situation where if you in your head, if I make a mistake, could I lose my job here? But this is a time, I think, for Heupel to answer the tough question. What kind of approach do you take to this quarterback situation? Do you even risk making the change and putting in a freshman understanding that he's not going to be perfect either. Nico's going to have to go through some growing pains. It sets you up better in the future later on, but you got to kind of look at the rest of the season and answer the question, where do you want to go? Do you want to take Joe Milton, a guy you know what you're going to get from him? And what we got from him is the potential for Tennessee to lose a couple more games on that schedule under that with his performance. Yeah. Or do you put in take a risk with the guy? And I want to get your opinion on this too. What you per se would prefer to see. Do you think we're going to see a lot more Nico, and do you think there's a potential for Heupel to make this change early in the season?
Yeah, that's a great question. Now, if you were asking me if it was a Nick Saban, my answer would be 100% we're going to see Nico. Nick Saban, played DB, coach defense, defensive-minded guy, so he'll move off the quarterback after one bad game. He moved off of Hurts in a playoff game.
Yeah.
Heupel, on the other hand, Heisman candidate quarterback from Oklahoma. He built this offense for quarterbacks. He's a quarterback coach before he was a OC and a head coach. So he understands the mental side of what it means to be a quarterback, and it was what you just said. You don't want to be scared to make a mistake. You don't want to be scared to make a big throw because of the other guy's potential to come in, right? And so I think that that's definitely going to play a part in it because Heupel understands from firsthand experience what it means to be the starting quarterback, have all the expectations on you, and not be performing to what you know you can play like. But on the other hand, he's the head football coach, and he's got to make these decisions.
Yeah.
And he knows this. If you don't think that you have a chance to go to the college playoffs this year, why not start Nico? Because you're going to lose 3 or 4 games with Joe Milton, and you might lose 3 or 4 games with Nico. Whenever Nico is going to start next year, he's going to go through those same growing pains that a first-year starting quarterback is going to go through. Would it be better for him to go through that this year when you're going to lose 3 or 4 games anyways, kind of invest in the next year where we're going to have an experienced 5-star quarterback and we're going to continue to build on this defense and continue to get the job done, defensively, because that's the biggest question mark. But in my opinion, if I'm Heupel and I know, okay, we're not going to beat Alabama this year, we're not going to beat Georgia this year, and we might lose to Kentucky or South Carolina, I'm putting Nico in. Give me the young guy. Give me the guy who's going to give these offensive guys a spark, because that's what this offense needs. I mean, they look flat against a bad Florida defense.
Yeah.
That Florida defense has question marks in the defensive backfield, and their linebackers have not been good the past 2 seasons, and the people that they brought in to fix them have not been playing well either.
Yeah.
So, this offense needs a spark. Nico could be that guy if Heupel believes that they still don't have a chance to make the playoffs.
And I can't remember who y'all play next week. Is it UTSA?
Yep. Okay.
And then UTSA is not exactly a big pushover. They're not a bad team,
no,
but they're a team that Tennessee should be able to handle. And we could be seeing a lot of Nico this week, assuming Tennessee comes out and gets a lead like they're supposed to. So I'm curious to see how that goes. Moving on to another team, SEC. Quarterback situation in absolute shambles.
Yeah.
Alabama. What in the absolute hell is going on in Tuscaloosa with that?
Yeah, so Nick Saban is the greatest college football coach to ever do it.
Absolutely.
All right, and he's a no-nonsense guy. And after the Texas loss, fans and analysts were saying there has to be a better quarterback. Why is Joe Milroe starting? Why did he not bench him? So I believe in this South Florida game, he's like, you guys think that I should have benched Milroe? Let me show you what these other quarterbacks we got in this room are like. I mean, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
And you saw Buckner shit the bed. And it's no secret, they went and got Buckner after spring practice. So what does that tell you? Joe Milton didn't have a good spring ball. Buckner played at Notre Dame under Alabama's new offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. So he's bringing in this guy saying, hey, the quarterback battle is an open battle. You could take the spot. Then fall camp finishes, Milroe's still the starter. What does that tell you? Buckner ain't good either.
Mm-hmm.
So Nick Saban is going to play the best guy. Like I was just saying, he's not scared to move off a quarterback. Whatever he thinks is going to give his team the best advantage on that next play, in that next drive to win that next game, he's going to do. So he was like, okay, you guys want to see what these other quarterbacks are like? Here, take a look. Talk about one-hopping throws to receivers. I mean, Alabama's not done by any means. I'm seeing people say it's going to be hard to convince these 4 and 5 stars to sit the bench for 2 and 3 years with NIL. Let's not forget, Alabama had top 3 least players to leave the transfer portal last year. So the culture there is sound. Everybody knows that Nick Saban is the guy if you want to get to the NFL. So I don't think Alabama's done by any means, but this season is going to be an off season for Alabama. LSU, Jaden Daniels looked tremendous
That was
on
one of his
Saturday.
best games I think he's ever played.
He looked in complete control. He was not scared to leave the pocket. He was sitting in the pocket cool, calm, and collected. If Jaden Daniels can do that, I mean, watch out for LSU.
Yeah, and I knew LSU was a good team, and a lot of people were quick to question them after that loss to Florida State. But Florida State, I think, is just a really good team.
Yeah.
LSU is really good, and they're going to be a threat to win the West, as predicted. And Alabama, and you hit on this perfectly too, and I said this in the last little podcast video that we did, Nick Saban's the greatest coach. He's going to put the best player on the field for the position. And he's looking us in the eye and saying Milroe is their best option. And if that is the case, and it's looking like it is, Alabama's in trouble. Yeah. Because I think Ty Simpson was the quarterback that finished the game for Alabama. He's
a young first-year guy.
A couple good throws, started off rough. But nonetheless, he's not ready. No. He's not what Alabama needs right now if they want to go to where they want to go. They got Ole Miss coming up. That's going to be a pretty tough game. Luckily, I think they get Ole Miss at home. But Lane Kiffin is absolutely salivating at the opportunity to beat Alabama. You're going to get Ole Miss's best. And for Alabama's sake, they have better figure out a way to get that offense moving if they want to beat this Ole Miss team.
And it's gonna be tough with that O-line they got, man.
Yep.
A first-year tackle on the left side. Their right tackle has not been much better at all. There was a play last game where 74, their left tackle gave up a sack and then didn't even go and help his quarterback up. So that I've never seen that from an Alabama team.
I haven't either.
That could be cause for some concern. Nick Saban obviously looked pretty stressed after the win. I know y'all saw that video of him.
He looked like a defeated man.
Walking through the tunnel. But transitioning into another game in the SEC, two SEC opponents, South Carolina traveling to Sanford Stadium to take on Georgia. Now, I was saying in the preview prediction, South Carolina has some weapons, and Spencer Rattler is no longer Spencer Rattled.
Yeah.
He is a lot more composed as a quarterback, even without, great protection. And South Carolina came in and executed their game plan well. They were getting the ball to their best players on offense, and they were executing, whereas Georgia was not. And, they jumped on them, and then, of course, the town of Georgia, came out on top. Their run game looked dominant. Carson Beck looked better, in my opinion, in the second half. So you're the Georgia fan between the two of us. So, what were your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, well, first of all, like you said, let's give South Carolina a lot of credit. That wasn't a fluke. That wasn't luck. That was straight up South Carolina coming in with a better game plan. They came out and looked like the better team. They were doing what they wanted to on offense. Georgia's offense was looking like the offense of past couple weeks in the first half. That raised a lot of questions. And Georgia's got to find ways to stop doing that. The question always was, what happens when Georgia runs into a team? Because they had games like this last year against Kent State and Mizzou. Two teams that Georgia should have been taking care of business. No one should be questioning those games at all. That should have been a game that Georgia should be able to go and win. They didn't. And then the questions rose in that game, what happens when Georgia does that against a team that actually is a really legitimate team?
It has some real talent, SEC talent, some SEC players.
Exactly. And at halftime, I could not look anyone in the eye and be like, look, I feel like Georgia's going to come back and win this game. I was genuinely had a bad feeling that Georgia was going to come out and lose this game after halftime. But let's give credit to Georgia as well. Kirby Smart made a lot of good adjustments at halftime, which is what great teams do. They got to be able to adjust.
Always been a great halftime.
Always been a great halftime. Like
similar to Saban.
Yeah, very similar to Saban. And Georgia came out and it just looked like a totally different team, offensively and defensively. I like the play calling that we had in the second half. I think we came out a little bit more aggressive. We started taking some deep shots, even on first down.
So I have a question about that before you continue. So the conservative play calling from Mike Bobo has been a problem for Tennessee, for Georgia fans rather, even since the Mark Richt era. So do you think that in his mind he thought he was going to be able to call a conservative game against South Carolina in that first half? And then do you think that Kirby Smart went to him at halftime and told him that he better, put his big boy pants on and make some big boy calls?
I'm sure Kirby Smart definitely said something to him, but I hope Mike Bobo realized what he was doing in the first half wasn't working. And he probably did have a plan heading into this game that he just thought Georgia's offensive line was so much better than South Carolina's defensive line that Georgia was going to be able to run the ball, pick up some yards, keep third down manageable so we can run our dink and duck screen game and our hitches and all that. But he quickly learned, or hopefully learned, that sometimes that shit ain't always going to work. And he did make some good play calls and adjustments in the second half. My biggest question with Mike Bobo and Carson Beck, really, Carson Beck has an NFL arm. and I think that's what separates him from the rest of the quarterbacks on the team. He's not the best mobile quarterback that we have. Vandergriff is the guy if you want dual threat, if you want a quarterback to have, give defense run threats. Brock Vandergriff's the guy. But we seem to be running an offense in the first half of a lot of dink and dunk stuff. And in my head, I'm thinking, we have a guy with an NFL arm. If we're going to run this offense where we're just going to throw a bunch of tunnel screens and hitch routes, why would we not put Brock Vandagriff in the game, a guy who can clearly hit those throws but give the defense a threat to run the ball? And Carson Beck, you use Carson Beck and use that arm to throw passes downfield, and Bobo just wasn't calling plays for him to do that.
So let me ask you a question. Of course, y'all's old offensive coordinator goes to the Ravens, Todd Monken, and then y'all obviously replace him with the guy y'all have had, Mike Bobo. Do you think that it is a little bit of a philosophy difference between these two coaches? Because Todd Monken is a genius of a play caller and a genius of a play designer. Mm-hmm. He'll take a concept that they ran in the 60s with 2 or 3 tight ends and throw it into some new stuff with the RPOs, and how they're pulling guards to the backside of a play to, influence the linebackers. So Todd Monken was a hidden gem for Georgia. And I think that maybe Georgia fans are starting to realize that now, because not every offensive play caller has the cojones that a Todd Monken would. And Georgia fans were saying whenever Todd Monken was coaching that he could be a little bit conservative. Mm-hmm. But I'll say this, it's easy to be that way whenever you're Georgia.
Yeah.
It's easy to call a game, especially when you like to run power and counter, buck sweeps. You're a big gap run guy. That's old school. You'll run power and counter till the wheels fall off.
Yep.
So it's easy to do that with a good team. But you see in these big games, these SEC opponents, or against SEC opponents, Tom Monken was not afraid to take the roof off. Look at what he did to Stetson Bennett.
Oh, yeah?
That guy was a walk-on.
Yeah. Yeah, there's 100% a philosophy change. Every coach, coordinator, they have their own set of philosophies and scheming that they want to do. And what you see from them in previous years is more than likely what you're going to get. And Mike Bobo, he's been doing the same kinds of stuff, the conservative play calling, and then trying to get a little cute with it at the wrong times. He's been doing that for years. That's why a lot of Georgia fans weren't exactly pleased with the hire, because we knew what we were going to get from Bobo. We've seen it before. And this is kind of similar. I'm not comparing Georgia's offense under Todd Monken to anything like that 2019 LSU team when they had Joe Brady. But Todd Monken wasn't there long enough to really install a philosophy that's going to stick. Similar to what Joe Brady, when he came in for a year, LSU obviously didn't retain, and that philosophy wasn't built in because Joe Brady just wasn't there long enough.
That's a great point.
So there's definitely a philosophy change, and unfortunately, you can't ask a coordinator to completely flip his tendencies and philosophy throughout the season. You got to let him be comfortable with his play calling. And then, thankfully, like you said, Georgia's just so loaded with talent that they're going to be able to get away with a lot of this stuff and conservative play calling against a lot of inferior opponents on their schedule. Now, the biggest question mark, obviously, the reason we're still so concerned, regardless if we're getting wins or not, is down the road we're going to play a team where we're not going to have the talent advantage like we do against a South Carolina, a UT Martin, and Ball State. Those games, you got to have an aggressive mindset. You got to be able to score points. You got to take advantage of every scoring opportunity you get. And
those teams aren't going to give you plays.
Exactly.
You got to go make plays.
You got to make plays. That's how you win the big-time games. That's how you win national championships. And Georgia, that's what Georgia's been doing the past couple of years, making the plays. And Carson Beck's going to have to find a way. I'm not putting all this on Bobo either. Carson Beck, there were times he looked really good, but there were a lot of times where you can just tell he has a conservative mindset with him as well. Especially in the first half, he was scared to go deep. There were play calls that were called for him to, take a shot downfield, and he would just be really quick to go to his check down and not even take the chance downfield. Eventually, you got to grow out of that. Sometimes you're just going to have to take that shot. And another thing that I think is really concerning too is our kicking situation. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but if we're getting in situations where we're struggling to make 30-yard kicks, we better get aggressive in the red zone and start scoring some touchdowns.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to change. I think a lot of the philosophy and mindset when we get in the red zone is going to change too. I think we're going to see a lot more passes going in the end zone to get some touchdowns.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about that kicking situation though. I mean, I feel bad for the guy. Obviously, he's been getting a lot of ridicule for his performance and missing a lot of field goals, because it's not like one of those deals where South Carolina was bringing the pressure and you had a guy coming in from the edge that the kicker sees in the corner of his eye. They literally sat there didn't even rush the blockers and let this guy kick. And this dude, he wasn't missing by a little bit. These were 28-yard field goals. He was missing by a mile. Yeah. And that's pressure getting to you.
Once you miss one, the pressure is like the weight of a mountain when you go out for that second chip shot.
Exactly. And I'm no kicker, but anyone with a brain knows it's a lot easier to make field goals after you made some than trying to make a field goal after you missed some. Nonetheless, though, I think that is still going to be an issue down the line. We got to be able to make field goals. Because we didn't have any turnovers in this game. My biggest concern, if we were going to lose this game to South Carolina, I didn't want to get in a situation where we're turning the ball over. But when you go down, you got a 28-yard field goal, and you miss it, that damn near feels like a turnover.
Yeah, for sure. You can't come out of a long drive like that where you ate up a bunch of the clock and not come out with points. Mm-hmm. Especially when you're running the style of offense that Georgia likes to run.
Yeah. Georgia plays UAB coming up this week. Of course, lesser opponent, and that's our night game. 7:30. That's our first true night game in a very, very long time. I guess UT Martin maybe. We started at 6. It's a night game. But point is, we got to get this stuff figured out. We got to work on taking shots downfield. If we're going to work on that stuff, it's got to be this week. We go on the road to play Auburn the following week. Auburn's not a great team by any means. They have a lot of issues. They got a lot of stuff they got to fix too. But South Carolina was a team that I feel like Georgia should have handled a lot better. Just give South Carolina a lot of credit. But going on the road, Carson Beck's first true road game in the conference against an Auburn team. Auburn's a tough place to play. If Georgia comes out and has any resemblance of that first half in that game, Georgia's in trouble. Especially when you're going against a crowd. It's a lot easier to come back when you have a crowd on your side. But when you're going into it a hostile Jordan-Hare Stadium, Georgia might not get away with it. Let's go around.
They play like how they did in that first half. That could definitely be the case. But the one thing I love about Georgia, and as a Tennessee fan, it pains me to say this because we're the exact opposite, but a team takes after the personality of the head coach, and the culture that he instills. And in the SEC, I'm in the belief that you have to be a tough head coach. Yep. Like you got Nick Saban, Kirby Smart. I mean, those are both defensive guys, former defensive coordinators coming and becoming head coaches. And anybody who's ever played any lick of football knows that having a defensive coordinator as the head coach is completely different than having a former quarterback's coach as the head coach, or even an offensive coordinator as the head coach. The mentality and how they attack everything is just different. The meeting on Monday at 6 in the morning, it's going to be a lot more relaxed with Josh Heupel, former quarterback, now head coach at Tennessee, compared to Kirby Smart, former DB and defensive coordinator. That's all energy and just being a dog. That's going to be it for this video, guys. Our camera cut with about 6 minutes left of recording, so we missed out on the final 6 minutes. But if you like the video and you're still watching, please like the video and subscribe. That helps us out tremendously. Comment any thoughts y'all have about this video in the comment section. We'll make sure to reply. We love getting feedback from you guys and engaging with the fans. We're almost at 500 subscribers. We got a giveaway planned for whenever we hit 500 subs, so stay tuned for that. We'll start releasing more information as that gets closer. But check out some other videos if you like this one, and let us know any type of video ideas you guys got. Leave them in the comments below. But thanks for all your support, and we'll see you.